It started with a smell. A dense coppery sweetness curling from beneath the ice, like something trying to breathe after centuries of silence. The archaeologists weren't prepared for that. They thought they'd found another reindeer graveyard, maybe some bone tools. Instead, they dug until the shovel hit something soft. Soft shouldn't exist after 20,000 years. The body was curled like a question mark, limbs tucked under her chest. A woman, her skin mummified into dark leather, was still intact around the cheeks. She had no eyes. Just two perfect sockets staring at nothing. And next to her, clinging frozen mid-embrace, was a child. No one spoke at first. No one breathed, because the child's body had been opened. The ribcage flared out like cracked bark, and inside empty. They called it a burial, but even the greenest in turn could tell this wasn't reverence. This was a wound, a story no one wanted to translate, a silence that trembled. Months later, when they brought the remains into the lab, the soil samples whispered more. Human fat, charred, marrow-burnt plant ash. They weren't buried. They were cooked. And that's when the real questions began. The cave was tucked inside a glacier's throat, invisible unless you knew the mountain's breath. Locals called it Davi, the place that grieves. They said the wind cried there even when the sky was calm. No birds nested above it. No animals crossed the threshold. But inside, etched with soot and ochre, were the first stories. Not of gods, not of glory, but of hunger. Figures with swollen bellies. Women holding knives, not children. Fires where no meat roasts. Only shadow after shadow, drawn with trembling lines, as if the artist feared what would come if they remembered too well. This was the tail end of the worm glaciation. The air wasn't just cold, it was carnivorous. It stripped the lungs, turned breath into knives. A human body couldn't last 3 hours outside naked. But the beasts were vanishing. Mammoth herds' thinned roots curled too deep beneath the frost to dig. Even bones snapped differently in that weather, sharper, more desperate. And when you were dying, what did you dream of? They found another mother. Different site, same pattern. Her arms were dislocated, torn from the sockets by some great force, as if she'd fought something to the end. She was surrounded by 7 tiny skulls, all arranged in a circle. No bodies, just heads. The femur bones nearby had been shattered, hollowed. The walls of her shelter were streaked with crimson clay, forming the same symbol seen in Davi. A circle within a circle. A womb inside a mouth. They tried calling it ritual cannibalism. That made it easier. But the carbon scoring on the bones, the boiling pits, the evidence of hemlock and soot, it wasn't ritual. It was resourceful. Necessary. Something prehistoric and maternal. There was no word for mother back then. No language, just breath and urgency. But you could see it in the way they painted hands. Small palms pressed beside larger ones. You could feel it in the tools made from softened antler, polished smooth from years of carving food too small to feed a family. And then there was the third site. Siberia, a cave whose entrance had collapsed, locking it in eternal night. Inside, they found 22 bodies. 14 of them were children, not over the age of 10, all arranged in a spiral, like a breaking storm. In the center, fire pit still black with soot. The ash contained lipids. Human ones, female. One pelvis had been cracked down the middle, as if split like firewood. And among the artifacts, a spoon made of skull, a cradle of jawbone, a charm necklace strung with milk teeth. But what disturbed them wasn't the violence. It was the tenderness. The bodies were cleaned, arranged. The infants were wrapped in animal hides, stitched carefully, as if still meant to sleep. There were no signs of struggle, no claw marks, no broken entrances. Whatever happened, it happened in love. Or something worse. By minute 7, the audience starts to shift in their seats. Their throat tightens. Because the idea of a mother doing this not out of malice, but mercy is unbearable. And yet, think about it. Your child hasn't eaten in 6 days. Their lips are blue. Their hands won't stop shaking. They cry without sound. You hold them, skin to skin, trading warmth like currency. But you know it won't be enough. You have two options. Wait for them to die slowly, painfully, and leave nothing behind. Or feed their sibling with what little they can still give. Just once. Just enough to survive the frost another day. Just long enough for one of them to see spring. That's the horror buried under this ice, not rage, but decision. Calculated. Mourned. Repeated. The myths came later. A tale passed between tribes, whispered in firelight with eyes averted. Of Akna, the mother who became the soup. She walked barefoot into the storm, clutching her son to her chest. For days, nothing. Then the boy returned alone, his mouth sealed with ash, his stomach full. They said he spoke no words until he grew old. Then one night, he carved a symbol into the earth. A circle inside it, smaller circle. And then he wept until the snow melted around him. They say the story is fiction, a metaphor for sacrifice. But the bones don't lie. And some of those symbols? They match DNA burial markers. It wasn't one woman. It wasn't one tribe. It happened across continents. From northern Spain to the Altai Mountains. From Denmark to ancient Japan. Signs of the same act. The same decisions. Sometimes spaced thousands of years apart. As if it was passed down. Not spoken, but remembered in blood. One forensic anthropologist lost sleep for 78 days after examining the jaw of a child from the Moravia cluster. She found micro-scratches along the gum line. Not made by teeth, by stone. A tool had been used to carve flesh from the mouth. The precision suggested skilled familiarity. She later published a paper proposing a hypothesis that certain Ice Age tribes had designated maternal executioners, women responsible for the transformation of the dying into sustenance, mothers as butchers. The paper was retracted after 2 weeks. Too upsetting, too gendered, but it made its way online. And survivors of modern famines, those who'd escaped sieges, camps, blockades, began commenting. One wrote, "My grandmother boiled her youngest. During Leningrad, they said it was potato stew. She only told me once, before dying, and I still wonder if she cried harder when he died, or when she served him." Another, "The hunger changes you. There's a place in the soul that only opens when you hear a child starve. After that, anything feels holy." By minute 10, we should talk about the science. The collagen in Ice Age child bones shows signs of long-term starvation. Some were weaned early, maybe because the mothers stopped producing milk. Their growth lines halted, restarted, halted again, like a broken clock. But the adults, most of them were fine. Or stronger, because the children were eaten. Not en masse, not often, but enough times to make a difference. Survival is numbers. Winter lasts 4 months. A body provides 40,000 calories. You don't eat the dead because you want to. You eat them because hope still costs more than despair. That's the real equation here. And that's why this isn't history. It's memory, buried in the marrow. But there's one story that doesn't fit. One that haunts even the skeptics. The Miyako remains discovered in Japan in 1997, dated 18,600 BCE. A mother childless, but not barren. Her pelvis was intact. No stretch marks. No birth canal scarring. But beside her lay 3 infant skulls. None of them genetically related to her. Yet her fingerprints, yes, they can lift them from preserved dermis now, were on the craniums. She held them often, held them last. And in her stomach, soot ash unidentifiable proteins. Not human, not animal. And inside her hand, a stone blade, sharpened to a surgeon's edge. Still clutched, still waiting. They called her the stranger mother. Not because she wasn't theirs, but because she chose to become one in death. A theory emerged that in some tribes, women unable to bear children were designated as caregivers to those who couldn't go on, that they became vessels for love, for grief, for consumption, not of their own blood, but someone else's. Imagine that, loving a child so much, you die to feed them. even if they weren't yours. And maybe that's why the myths always end the same way. With the snow melting, with a child walking away alone, with a silence that grows, generation by generation, into instinct. Not language, not memory, but that cold feeling in your spine when your child doesn't cry. That gut-deep scream when they don't wake. The things a parent knows before they understand. We thought they were animals, but maybe they were prophets. Maybe the Ice Age didn't just end. Maybe it was buried. And maybe, somewhere deep in the genome, we still carry her voice. The one who said, "I'm sorry, little one." The one who said, "Close your eyes." The one who boiled the bones, not out of cruelty, but so they'd soften enough for tiny mouths to chew. So the others could live. So the stories could continue. So that one day, someone like you would be here to listen. It ends, of course, with the fourth site. Still unpublished, leaked from a dig site in Greenland. A circle of 6 children, dead untouched. A woman outside the ring, her throat cut, by her own hand. The fire pit untouched. No soot, no ash, just frost. No one knows why she didn't do it. Why she let them all die. Maybe she couldn't choose. Maybe she broke the cycle. Or maybe she waited too long. And the hunger wasn't hers anymore.